Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
So the first conditional statement that we're gonna cover in this video is the if statement. The if statement is an instruction that can be used as a decision-making statement. For example, if you hit the like button, I'm gonna be happy. So that's just an example. Now let's dive to the code. So we're gonna create a file called first.py. You can use gedit command to create a file, but for me I use the Sublime text editor. I like it, I feel comfortable with it. If you want to install Sublime text, check the description for more information. But you can work with gedit or nano or vim, feel free to use what you want. So let's create our file sub first.py. So let's create a comment using the hash sign. So a comment is a line of text that is not executed by the interpreter, and comments are used to explain code. So hash sign number game. So that's mean that this code is a number game. So we're gonna build a game of numbers. A number game. So this line will not be executed by the interpreter. Now let's create a variable called number and assign to it an input function that allow a user to insert a value into the program. And when the user insert a value, this value will be assigned to the number variable. So number equal input function, enter a number. So this is the message that the user will see. Now let's just use the print function and print a message that show you the number that you was entered before. So print your number is plus number variable. This is just concatenation between two strings. Now let's go to the terminal, Python, first.py. As you can see, the program is waiting from us to insert a value. So let's enter, for example, 4578. As you can see, we get the message that we were right before. So before we start our lesson, we need to know that the input function return a string value. And to prove that, let's use the type function that return the type of the variable that we pass to it. So print type number. Now let's execute our program again and let's enter an integer value. As you can see, the type was string, despite we enter an integer value. So we need to solve this problem. So we're gonna use the int function that converts an integer that have the string data type to an integer that have the integer data type. And if you are familiar with C programming language, you may notice that to do this, you need to use a concept called casting. But in Python, you don't need that. Just use the int function. So let's create another variable called number1 and assign to it the int of the number variable that we created before. But creating another variable will reserve some space on memory, and we don't want that. So let's comment this line. So we're gonna pass what the user entered to the int function, and the int function will return an integer value. This value will be assigned to the number variable. That's cool. Let's verify that our code worked correctly. As you can see, the type of the number variable now is an integer. So now let's comment this line and start our program. So let's talk about how our program gonna work. Inside the program, there is a number that is not visible to the user, and the user need to guess this number. So if the user enter the correct number, he will get you win, but if not, he will see you lose. So let's code that. The first thing that we're gonna do is creating the variable, which is the secret of this program, and assign to it 45, for example. So the condition is if number equal, and we use equal to mention that this a test of comparison between the number variable and the e variable. So if the number that was entered by the user equal to e, we're gonna print you win. Else, we're gonna print you lose. And else mean that the condition of comparison between e and number was false. That's mean that the else statement will be executed when the number variable is different than e. Now let's execute our program. Enter 45, so you lose. Let's execute again and enter 78. You lose again. Now let's enter 48. You win. Now let's add other conditions to our script. The condition that we're gonna add now is if the user enter a number that is less than 48, he gonna see your number is small. But if the number is greater than 48, he gonna see your number is big. So to do that, we're gonna use the elif statement, which is standing for else if. So if the number was not equal to the a variable, check for another condition. elif number less than a, print your number is small. elif number greater than a, print your number is big. So let's test our game. As you can see, your number is small. Let's execute again and enter 89. As you can see, your number is big. Now, let's dive to the second conditional statement that will improve our script. So, the second thing that we're going to talk about is the while loop. So, a while loop is used to execute a block of statements repeatedly while the given condition is satisfied. And when the condition becomes false, the program will jump to the next line after the loop. So let's go back to code. We're gonna use the same script, but we will make it better. So while number not equal to a, print you lose. Let's execute our script and enter 7. As you can see, we get an ineffectively message. Let's hit Ctrl+C to crash the program. We get an ineffectively message because the condition was always true. The number variable was always different than the a variable. Now let's update our script a little bit. So inside the while loop, we're gonna add an if statement that check if the number was less than a, and it will print small number if the condition is true. And let's add another condition that check if the number was greater than a, and print to the user big number. Now let's execute our script and let's enter a small number. As you can see, we get an ineffectively messages that told us that the number was small. So let's crash the program and insert a big number. We get that our number is big, but we don't want this. We want the program to check if our number is less or greater than the secret number and tell us, after, give us the possibility to enter the number again. Now let's do that. So after the print function, we're gonna add another line that tells the user to insert a number. For example, the first condition tests if the number was less than a. If it is true, it's gonna print your number is small. That is mean that the user need to enter a big number. And that's why we're gonna tell the user to insert another number that was greater than what he inserted before. So we're gonna use the same variable and input function and tell the user to insert a big number. And let's do the same for the other condition. Now let's test if our program works properly. As you can see, this is a good result. But the problem is, when we enter the correct number, the program didn't tell us that we win. So let's fix that. So we win when the number that we enter is equal to e. That is mean that the condition of the while loop is false. And when the condition is false, it's gonna jump to the next instruction. The block of the while statement will not be executed. And that's mean that we're gonna add the when message after the while loop. So now let's test again. And as you can see, this is the result that we want. Now let's talk about the for statement. The for loop is similar to the while loop, but we use the for loop when we know the number of the iteration that we want to execute. So let's explain that with an example. So for e, in range 0, 4, 2 points, print e. And that is mean from 0 to 4, we're gonna print e. that contain in the first iteration 0, and in the second iteration 1, the third iteration 2, the fourth iteration 3, and stop executing what is inside the for loop. So when e equal to 4, the program will go to the instruction after the loop, and that's mean we're gonna exit the loop. So let's execute the program and see the output. As you can see, 0, 1, 2, 3. 4 was not appeared. Let's now change 4 to 100. As you can see, 100 was not appeared again. So if we want to see it on the output, you must change the last value to 101. Now it's printed. The range function accepts also another parameter, which stands for how much you want to add to the e variable after every iteration. So let's add the third parameter and give to it 4. Let's see the output. As you can see, the output of the first iteration is 0, but in the second iteration it is 4, because it adds 4 to 0 and print 4. And in the third iteration it will be 8, because 4 plus 4 equal 8. Now, let's use this for loop to print the content of a list. If you don't know about list data type, just check the last video that I made. It's the second video in this course. So let's create a programming language list and call it prog_list that contains some programming languages. Now, using the for loop, we want to print all the items of the prog list. So for e in range 0, 5, because our list contains 5 items. 2 point and print prog_list e between square brackets. But if we don't know how much of items are in our list, we use the len function. It will return 5. So instead of writing 5, we're gonna write len prog_list. As you can see, it gives us the same result. But it is more easier, because we don't need to know how much of items the list contain. We can use another method which is more easier. We just use for language in prog_list print language. So in the first iteration, language variable gonna contain Python and it will be printed. The second iteration, language contain Java and it will print it, and so on. Our video is ended here. Thank you very much for your time. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. And please, if I miss something, just tell me in the comments. And goodbye.